Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Murder at Mallowan Hall, written by Colleen Cambridge. It's the first in a series, the Phyllida Bright series. It's a cozy mystery, an historical cozy mystery. I found this very interesting book. It's got a great hook for me anyway, because the main character, Phyllida, she's a housekeeper for Agatha Christie and Agatha Christie's husband. I enjoyed that in this story, and that's what hooked me into wanting to read this book in the first place. Just that whole thing about the housekeeper of Agatha Christie being the main character, and it's a murder mystery as well. What more could you ask for? Agatha Christie and her husband have a few people over. They're staying for a few days, I think, in the story. Phyllida, the housekeeper, is looking after all the guests, making sure the house is running smoothly. There's also a butler, and he's a great character as well. And oftentimes in this story, Phyllida and the butler, they are at loggerheads about certain things. So that makes an interesting scenes in the story. I do like their interactions a lot in this book. But anyway, at the start of this book, Phyllida is just walking into the library for some reason, and she comes across a dead body. There's a guy in the library, dead. He's been stabbed in the neck with a fountain pen. The person who's being murdered wasn't an official guest in the house. He just turned up out of the blue the day before, or the evening before, and he said he was a journalist, and he wanted to interview Agatha for an article for a paper. Agatha said yes, but she wanted to turn him away, but because the evening was turning into a storm or bad weather, she allowed him to stay in a guest room. That's the reason he's there. But, we've got a house full of people. Is one of them guilty of this murder? And it's kind of like a classic Agatha Christie mystery in that way. Someone's murdered in a house where a lot of people are staying, and any person in the house is a suspect. What I like about Phyllida in this story as well is that she's an ex-army nurse. So when she comes across the dead body, she's not fazed by it. She doesn't scream, doesn't cry out, doesn't get into hysterics. She calmly studies the body, has a look herself to see how she could work out how the guy was murdered and who could have murdered him by clues on the body. And then she calls the police. After she calls the police, she alerts the butler as well. And he's a bit miffed because, he wanted to be told about the murder before the police. He thinks that's the way it should have happened. So there's more tension then between the butler and Phyllida. The police arrive, and Phyllida, of course, doesn't think they're competent enough. She doesn't trust they're going to solve this murder. So she's going to start investigating, because she wants to know, is anybody else in the house in danger? She's very protective of the people in the house, the staff, and of course Agatha and Agatha's husband. And she's just a bit suspicious of the guests in the house. Also in this story, there's a new chauffeur in the house, and he's a great character as well, because Phyllida is worried about him. She suspects him at different times in the story of being the culprit, but I like his character. Later on in this story, there's a second murder. A young maid in the house is murdered. Are the two murders linked? We're never sure in this story, at least until the very end. And I like that about this story. I like the way the plot's constructed. We have two murders. They could be the same culprit, could be different people committing the crimes. Are they linked? Are they totally separate crimes? We're never sure, and it slowly builds up towards the end of the book. We slowly learn more and more, and I like the way the author did that. Even though the author created some great characters in this story, in the household staff especially, they're so vibrant and colourful, and their characters are so well created, I thought. The best characters in the story. Phyllida herself is, of course, the best character out of them all. Much of this book hangs on her observations, her thoughts. Sometimes they're witty, sometimes they're cynical, sometimes they're funny. So it's dependent on Phyllida as a character to have this book being successful. That's in my opinion. And it's just as well because the author did a good job in creating Phyllida. Got her history, and it's very good history, and it makes sense to who she is now. There seems to be some little bits of her past we have yet to learn, and I would have liked to learn more about her past, but get hints about things. She doesn't want people to know certain thing about her here or a certain thing about her there. But we're never told why. I would have liked in some of those moments to be told why, given more detail about that. I think that's a bit of a shame. I don't want to wait for book 2 or 3 in the series, if there's going to be more books in the series, to learn more about her history. I want to know why she wants to be so secretive and now in the story, because she seems to want to keep much of herself secret, even from other people in the household. Phyllida, of course, the main character, the housekeeper, she's well crafted and well created. I did like her character as a whole. There's some of her history that I think we should get now in the first book, and we weren't given all her history. What we were given made sense to who she is now, but I just want to learn more about her. I want to learn why she's so secretive about her past, because it seems to play a big part in her character. We're not told why. It just hangs there, as a mystery in itself. But I think we should learn why this main character wants to be so secretive. I do like her interactions with people, especially the butler. I found those interactions quite humorous sometimes. Her observations about people are very witty and very dry sometimes, very cynical. I do like that about this character as well. Very good character in my opinion. I like to see how she gets developed in future books in this series, because I don't know how much room she has to grow as a character. Bradford is the new chauffeur who's introduced in this story. He's a good character because he's introduced in a way that makes him suspicious. And suspicious to Phyllida, and through Phylida's eyes, suspicious to the reader. I like their interactions, and Bradford is a character who's got a lot of strength. He's made of stern stuff, and he won't let Phyllida push him around. And there's a lot of back and forth between them, especially in their dialogue. And I get the hint that Bradford may be there as a potential love interest for Phyllida in the future. I'm not sure about that, it just seems like it may be so. Mr. Dobble is the butler, and I like his interactions with Phyllida. Mr. Dobble is very stiff and very serious, and he's a great contrast to Phyllida. Phyllida, even though she can be serious at times, she's not always serious, and she seems to have a bit of adventure in her, a bit of fun as well. But Dobble doesn't. He's all business. He thinks the household should be run in a certain way. He thinks everybody should be doing what the butler says. The butler's voice is the strongest in the house, in his opinion, but Phyllida will have none of that. So it's very good interactions between them both, and I'm wondering how that's going to play out in future books in this series. I thought this was a very good book for a first book in a Cozy Mystery series. It's not the best first book in a series I've read, but it's still quite strong. And so much of it hangs on the character Phyllida. If she wasn't as engaging and as interesting as she was in this story, then this book wouldn't have been as good. So I hope in book 2, so I think there is a second book in the series, I haven't read it yet, but I hope that book 2, that Phyllida is still a strong character, but I hope the mystery, the overall story is stronger, because it's very hard for the author to continue on in a series just having so much of the strength of the books hanging on one character. I rate this a 3.5 out of 5. On my channel, I do review other Cozy Mystery books. If you're interested in those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a Cozy Mystery playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.